How you doing?
Good.
Good. Okay. So we all know that you've had some wonderful patients over the years and worked with some amazing organizations, specifically the Lakers and the Kings. I'm excited that LeBron's back and going to be leading the team here in LA. What are your thoughts on him being the leader of the organization?
Well, he's proven himself to be a great leader and a great champion and a great athlete.
Yeah.
And I think the Lakers are probably still maybe one key player away from contending for a championship. But, you know, LeBron's won championships with less talent around him than he has in LA at the moment. And the Lakers have some great young players. So it's certainly going to be a very exciting season.
He definitely knows how to take control of the situation and bring in those wins, for sure.
Absolutely.
So losing Kobe was a tough situation, but to have somebody of that caliber to be the leader and both as LA natives, it's kind of cool to see that energy and drive back in the city again. So I'm excited. Maybe we'll go to a Laker game together at some point.
Yeah, definitely a basketball town.
Yeah. And speaking of LeBron, I know you had done his LASIK, and he's made some amazing comments about that. Can you tell me a little bit more about how he found you and what performance metrics you look for in professional athletes?
Yeah, that's a lot of questions all in one. You know, LeBron and I met through word of mouth, through his NBA contacts, and we got to know each other, and I had operated on a number of NBA athletes before that. And being as competitive as he is and wanting to be at the absolute top of his game, he didn't want to leave any stones unturned. He wanted his vision to be as crisp as possible also. So we were very happy to be able to help him out. That was a long time ago. That was maybe, my guess is maybe 11 years ago.
And what's interesting is that the LASIK you performed, what was interesting to me is a lot of times patients may ask, how quickly can I get back to work and how quickly can I get back into my routine? And he was back to practice, the next day after his LASIK?
Well, we find that the professional athletes, they're professional athletes for good reason. They're compulsive about being at the top of their game.
Sure.
So you're not going to keep a guy like him away from going back to practice immediately. I've had professional athletes who asked if they could go practice the same day, and my guess is some of them did. You know, certainly there's nothing wrong with giving yourself a day off, I think. But the beauty of the LASIK procedure and the way we developed it for professional athletes, the whole intention was to optimize both vision recovery and at that level of competition, whether it's tennis, you could get hit in the eye with the ball, football, soccer, basketball, boxing. You know, we've even operated on a lot of martial arts professionals. At that level of competition, they get hit in the face all the time.
Sure.
You know, they just don't sit around and cry about it, so people don't really notice. But in a typical basketball game, if you ever rewind a basketball game and watch how many times people get hit in the head, it's astounding. And so we had developed our technique of LASIK many years ago, specifically with high contact sports professional athletes in mind, where we rotated the hinge of the flap out here because you have bony prominences down below, nasally and superiorly. And so the technique that I had developed, we referred to it as E-LASIK or elliptical, because we customized the shape of the flap for the shape of the eye and also put the hinge out here so that if they did get hit for any reason due to trauma, there was no concern about returning early to competitive interaction.
So when patients are choosing LASIK, it's important for them to kind of decide who to go to or where to have the LASIK perform. So what makes the Institute so special, and why are patients choosing?
You know, if you sell apples on a street corner, if you're an apple vendor and you sell the shiniest apples and you really make sure they're fresh and you make sure they're clean and you're pleasant to the people that come by, probably over the years, your chances are you're going to sell more apples than the next person. And that's the approach that we've always taken, which is provide the absolute best level of care that you're capable of, never cutting any corners, always trying to make sure that every treatment has stacked into it the right portfolio of gadgets and the best that technology has to offer, but you also think through how you're going to customize it for this individual, what are their specific needs. And so that's always been our objective, and I think it would be fair to say that we're very love-based as an organization, and patients want to be loved by their doctors. It's very simple. They're not looking to go to an accountant's office or an engineer's office. Not that those folks aren't love-based also, but when you come to a doctor, you know, as a child, when I was sick, I wanted the doctor to be kind and loving and gentle and sweet.
Yeah.
And so we provide those things. And so over the years, our results, we've been very lucky. We've participated in a lot of FDA studies, and we've been pioneers and the first in the world to do a lot of different surgeries, a lot of which are still actively currently provided treatments around the world. And we put a big emphasis from early on giving back to the community, not just charity work, but I think equally importantly, or possibly more importantly, training other doctors. Because if I do charity work somewhere, say in Africa, I've done charity work from Haiti to Mexico, all kinds of places, I'm not there to follow up those patients. But if I train a surgeon in Mexico or Haiti and give them good skills, they're there to deliver care for thousands of patients over time.
Paying it forward,
yeah,
right?
And so a lot of those surgeons now, you know, more than 10,000 doctors have been to my courses. A lot of them refer to us. Right here in our own backyard, it's relationships like ours, you know, where you feel like you're taking care of a patient with a friend.
And it seems seamless too. It's not like there's a disconnect, and that's what I really like when we work together here at the Institute, is that it's a handoff. It's that whole relationship of, going back to the sports analogy of like Jordan and Pippen, right? Where it's that nice assist that I give to you, and then it's a nice handoff right back to me, and the patients come back saying thank you for that referral, and you guys are an extension of us. So whether we're sending out to a retina specialist or a Lasik surgeon or an orthopedic surgeon, patients want to know that they expect the best from us, and we hope that they get the same care when we pass them off to have those procedures performed. So I really appreciate that, truly. Going back to some of these patients, like the athletes, what performance metrics do you guys look for?
I probably went off on a big tangent.
That's okay.
So you're asking a great question about performance metrics, and you're asking a great question about why athletes. Kind of, that's what I meant early on when I said you're asking several questions in one. You know, first off, why athletes be so prioritized when it comes to scrutinizing how we're gonna, you know, whether we want to treat them or not. It's because their career is compressed into a very short period of time. People forget the average NFL player's career is less than 5 years. Even in most major sports, the average career is less than 5 years. Whether you pick soccer, this or that, you know, there's a few super athletes, we follow them for 10, 15 years, and we think everybody plays for 20 years. No, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was an anomaly.
Yeah. Even Kobe was it close
all
to 20
these,
years?
Look at LeBron. You know, look at LeBron. He's played more games than probably by a factor of 2 than the average NBA professional does in their entire career. What you find is in the young NBA players or the young soccer players or the NFL players, where they're playing a lot of night games or in funny lights. So in the case of soccer especially, and the NFL, they play a lot of night games.
Sure.
Environment's very different for night games. Pupils dilate up. The ball's getting kicked 50 meters, 60 meters, right?
Yeah.
They have to time it just right. You actually want them to be a little farsighted, because they're young enough, and even when they're exhausted, they still have enough zooming power in the lenses of their eye. You don't want them to be just perfect 20/20 in the exam lane, because what happens is if you have them at that, their night vision performance isn't quite as crisp.
Right.
And the same with the three, you know, by the time you get out to 3-point zone, you want to be a little bit farsighted. Especially these younger players, they're so charged up and amped up, they get a little bit of accommodation. So they're going to feel, if you make them what you and I consider 20/20, where we drive around, we see gray, and we go into a restaurant, we read a menu and all that, that's not putting them at the top of their game. So I put them a little over the top, and that works out nicely for them.
So that's that extra value you're adding, is that you're not just cookie cutter and getting them to 20/20/20. You're focusing and customizing it, not just customizing the LASIK based off of the shape of their eye, but customizing it based off of their lifestyle.
Right.
And that's what's amazing about what you do here at the Institute.
Is I would like to start to gather statistics on the athletes' performances before and after eye surgery, so we can have an objective metric of, the guy got a year older, right? So if he's 18, you could argue he hasn't come into his prime yet. That Wimbledon champion that I told you that I operated on brought his son. His son is a junior in Europe, but he's becoming a rising star really fast. And he sent me a note. He said, he at the Holland National Facility for Testing Athletes, he says to me, Kerry, they said they've rarely seen anybody with this kind of vision. I had done LASIK on the kid. He says, they said his vision is 2.0 in one eye and 2.5 in the other. What exactly does that mean? I said, well, 2.0 is 2010 and 2.5 is 28, which approaches the limit of the human potential of the retina. So that's what they're saying. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Premium vision.
Yeah.
A couple of final notes are, I know that we're always striving for constant, never-ending improvement in our personal lives, in our relationships, and with our patients, and especially with technology. Can you tell us what's on the horizon in terms of refractive surgery and what's to come?
Yeah, I think there's a few exciting things. People, when you say that, one of the questions I get asked by people all the time is, should I wait 5 years or 10 years? I tell them, there'll be better cars, certainly in 5 or 10 years, but I wouldn't walk to work in the meantime. We've already gotten to the level of being able to deliver refractive surgery up to the retinal potential of the individual. So even though our technology gets better, we might hit those numbers more often. We're not going to be able to use refractive surgery to surpass what a person's retinal potential is going to be. So there's certainly good things coming along, but I wouldn't walk to work in the meantime. I had my surgery initially 24 years ago. I want to say maybe 25 years ago. I forget the math now, either 1993 or 1994. And for all those years, I've enjoyed. I had 20/10 vision for what seemed like forever, and that was obsolete technology now. We don't do that surgery for anybody anymore, and so there will be good things coming. But if a person has become intolerant of contact lenses, I wouldn't tell them continue to wear your contacts and tough it out, because they could get a really bad infection, So I think existing technology is certainly good enough, but what's on the horizon? So what's on the horizon is several things. One is the presbyopic corneal inlay, which is still undergoing FDA review, so I'm not sure if it'll get released or not, but it is by far the best inlay that I've ever worked with. Everybody thinks, science evolves so rapidly. Science does evolve rapidly, but the application of science in medicine can take a very long time. The presbyopic micro lens, which used to be called a completely different thing when we first started working with it, I've worked on that project for close to 20 years now. And only now and what it is it's a contact lens about, in volume, maybe 2 or 3% the volume of a normal contact lens, but it fits in the cornea, front and center. And what it does is it doesn't take the place of contact lenses. What it does is it's a treatment for presbyopia. So instead of my doing LASIK on one eye, say, to give them reading vision in that eye, what we do now is we'll implant that so that the person can continue with that eye to enjoy pretty good distance vision. Of course, their other eye, we make it perfect for distance, say with LASIK, where they already see perfect, but they can see excellent up close. So they finally get binocular distance. So it's like monovision plus, nice. Where it's not one eye for near, one eye for distance. Both eyes are for distance, but they can
more
also
or less have that binocular vision for distance,
right.
But they can also see
and
the menu.
It has the benefits where it's transparent, so you don't know it's there. Nobody sees it. It's underneath the surface. The patient doesn't water it or use eye drops or anything like that. They're done. But you could also remove it. Let's say their needs change. Let's say they develop a cataract later, and they need cataract surgery. It's easy to go in there, take that out, go back to ground zero, and move ahead. And I've implanted these overseas. I started implanting them about 15 years ago in Mexico initially, in Mexico City actually, and since then in other places around the world. I've seen patients who had it in 5 or 6 years earlier. I went and exchanged it for higher power because the lens in their eye changed. So this is titratable. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not like the camera inlay, you know?
Yeah.
The difficulties with the camera inlay was, it was a one-size-fits-all, and therefore we had to pick the patients that were in the sweet spot, and there was very few of those. And then sometimes we would even put those in, and we thought we got a great result, but the patient wasn't happy because their friends would notice the dark thing that was sitting in their eye. This is transparent, so that's exciting. Johnson & Johnson is about to raise the bar in LASIK by releasing the next generation of wavefront, which takes both wavefront and combines it with topography, and we think will get us even more accurate data.
Is that considered topo-guided LASIK? Or is that
topo-guided is just topo-guided. This is wavefront
Combining.
topography augmented. So it's true wavefront and topography augmented. Nobody else has the product. They're the only game with that right now. Yeah.
And that'll be the next level of.
Yeah. So it takes eye design to the next level. What eye design did for LASIK is it enabled us to more consistently hit better than 20/20. Okay, when I measure you for glasses, I can measure you kind of like this and like this, in 2-dimension. And I can give you a best ballpark. But what about all these little tiny dots in between? One of them is maybe a little, this part of my eyes has a slightly higher power, this other part is slightly lower. Wavefront was supposed to deliver on that. The wave scan simply couldn't. It was just not accurate enough. It didn't have enough pencils of light. It didn't have enough accuracy in each pencil of light. A lot of algorithms I don't want to get into. Eye design delivers on that promise. It's much more accurate. It puts out enough pencils of light and can distinguish between adjacent bundles. Because the problem with WaveScan, for example, is if you think of it, what it would do is it would send a pencil of light in and it comes back and it measures that one, sends another one and measures that, and it measures the aberrations in these. But what if the eye has such high aberrations that when the pencils of light come back, they crisscross? The system couldn't tell them apart. But the eye design can do that. So we have now the ability to deliver on better than we could hope to with a pair of glasses, and so that's exciting. Do
you feel like I know you guys, we've shared a number of patients for surgery, but also for dry eyes. Do you feel like relieving dry eyes has had any positive outcomes on your LASIK or cataract patients?
The eye is like a camera, and you realize that, I realize that. But in the analogy of a camera, if you have a lens on that camera that's not finely polished, you're not going to take the same quality photographs. The tear film of the eye is that polishing agent. If we took the surface of a human eye and magnified it large enough under electron microscopy, the cells would take on a mosaic pattern like this. Well, what fills the gap between these adjacent ones so when the light hits it doesn't scatter? The tear film. And so without a good tear film, you're not going to have superhuman vision. I don't care who you are. When I wake up with my usual insomnia at 3 o'clock in the morning and my brain is too busy and I decide to sit and work, if I went to bed at 1 o'clock and I got up at 3 o'clock, my eyes are so tired, I'm so dry, I can't see. It takes me a while to wake them up. And so managing dry eyes is critical, and I know you specialize in that, and that's one of the things I love is by the time you send me a patient, I don't have to spend time managing that issue and getting them ready. They're ready to go by the time I see them. And of course, that field of dry eye therapy is rapidly evolving. I wrote a white paper 20-something years ago in St. Louis touting what a super drug doxycycline is because of all the things it does besides being an antibiotic. And the company that asked me to write it was Alcon, and they took it, they said, this is great, it's doing nice in Europe, but it's kind of esoteric. And now, many years later, people came back and said, oil gland deficiency is the #1 cause of dry eye. And that's what the doxycycline was speaking to back then. We didn't have all the great stuff, LipidFlow and Delight and all the other stuff, that's tools that are available to us now, and the great eye drops. I think it might have been Refresh was like the first eye drop that came out that was non-preserved, and before that people were pouring battery acid on their eyes, trying to deal with dry eyes. I mean, goodness.
Home remedies.
Yeah. Well, no, the eye drops that existed had all these preservatives in them, and the preservatives were eventually beat up on the eyes.
EDTA and everything.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Well, it's been an amazing time with you today, so I really appreciate you kind of going through all this with me, and I hope our relationship continues to evolve into something amazing, and look forward to sharing numerous patients together.
So you said I kissed the boxer, but all I get out of you is a handshake. I don't get a hug.